And hey friends, welcome back to Time to Sleep History. Tonight we're heading into a time where life wasn't just hard, it was exhausting, unfair, and sometimes downright terrifying. Imagine surviving on barely 150 workdays a year for your lord, with no weekend to rest. Welcome to medieval peasant life. We're stepping into the shoe saw, rather, bare feet of a medieval peasant. But before we begin, dim your lights, grab something warm to sip on, and let me know in the comments what time it is where you're listening from. Now, breathe easy, let your body relax, and let yourself drift back to a world where even sleep offered only the briefest escape from hardship. The dawn that never comes too soon. Picture yourself stirring in the pre-dawn darkness, your body already knowing what your mind dreads to remember. The cold seeps through the thin walls of your hut like water through a broken dam, and you feel it in your bones before your eyes even open. Sleep wasn't rest, it was just a brief pause between one day's exhaustion and the next day's demands. Your straw mattress, infested with biting insects, offers no comfort as you shift your aching limbs. The earth floor beneath you radiates a chill that climbs up through the scattered straw, reminding you that even lying down brings no true relief from the hardships that define your existence. The rooster's crow cuts through the morning air like a blade. But this isn't just a wake-up, come it's a summons to a day that will test every fibre of your being. There's no snooze button in this world, no gentle transition from dreams to reality. The moment that sound reaches your ears, your body knows it must move, despite the protest of muscles that haven't recovered from yesterday's labour. You feel the weight of obligation pressing down on you before you've even sat up, knowing that the fields await and the Lord's demands won't wait for your comfort or readiness. Your wooden hut offers no sanctuary from the elements, just thin, drafty walls made of wattle and daub that barely keep out the biting cold and damp. The thatched roof above you drips with condensation, and you can feel the moisture in the air settling on your skin. These walls, patched and repatched like everything else in your life, seem to breathe with the wind outside, letting in drafts that make you shiver even under your rough blanket. The single room that houses your entire family feels smaller in these dark hours, cramped with the basic furniture that defines your world: a few stools, a trunk for bedding, and little else. The smell of last night's dying fire mingles with the mustiness of straw and unwashed bodies, creating an atmosphere thick with the reality of medieval life. Smoke from the hearth still lingers in the air, making each breath a reminder of the primitive conditions that surround you. There's no running water, no toilets, no bathing facilities. Soap and shampoo are unheard of luxuries. The scent of livestock drifts through the walls, as chickens, pigs, and sometimes even cows share the same living space during the harsh winter months. This close proximity to animals provides additional warmth, but also fills the air with their odors, adding another layer to the complex smell of survival. Your clothes wait beside you, simple, rough linen garments patched repeatedly, offering minimal warmth against the morning chill. These grey and dark pieces, secured by a belt at the waist, have been mended so many times that you can trace the history of your struggles in every stitch. The wooden clogs beside your bed are cold to the touch, and you know they'll provide little comfort for the long day ahead. Each piece of clothing tells a story of making do, of stretching resources beyond their limits, of finding ways to survive when replacement isn't an option. Every joint aches from yesterday's labour, yet you know today will demand even more. Your hands, already rough and calloused, throb with the memory of yesterday's work. Your back carries the weight of countless hours bent over crops, and your shoulders remember the burden of carrying water and hauling loads that would break a modern person's spirit. The agricultural calendar shows no mercy. You'll work between 601, 800 hours this year, with summer months meaning work starts as early as 3 in the morning to make the most of every precious hour of daylight. Your body protests this rhythm, but your survival depends on pushing through the pain. The darkness outside isn't peaceful, it's filled with the sounds of other peasants beginning their own struggles. You hear the rustling of straw as neighbours stir in their huts, the creak of wooden doors opening to admit the cold morning air, and the distant sounds of animals beginning their day. These sounds create a symphony of survival. Each note a reminder that you're not alone in this hardship, but part of a community bound together by shared struggle. The wind carries voices across the small distance between dwellings, calls of greeting mixed with the quiet complaints of bodies forced into motion too early. As you finally push yourself upright, the reality of your situation settles around you like a heavy cloak. The floor beneath your feet is cold and rough, and you can feel the dampness seeping up through your thin shoes. The air in the hut is thick and hard to breathe, filled with smoke from the inadequate ventilation of your primitive heating system. You share not just space, but the weight of survival with your family, each person understanding their role in the day's endless demands. The lack of proper sanitation means that cleanliness is a luxury you can't afford, and the constant presence of fleas and lice reminds you that comfort is not part of your world. This moment of waking reveals the first harsh truth about peasant life. There is no gentle start to a peasant's day, only the harsh transition from exhausted sleep to exhausting labor. The brief escape that sleep provided dissolves instantly, replaced by the crushing awareness of all that must be accomplished before the sun sets again. Your body, which modern people would consider broken and in need of rest, is simply the tool you have to work with. The ache in your joints isn't a sign to slow down, it's just another part of the reality you've learned to accept. If you survive to adulthood, you can expect to live perhaps 40 to 50 years, a sobering reminder that every day counts in ways modern people can barely comprehend. As you step into the cold morning air, pulling your rough cloak tighter around your shoulders, you realize the day ahead will test whether you have the strength to endure what your ancestors somehow survived. The transition from the smoky warmth of your hut to the sharp bite of the outdoor air is jarring, but it's also the beginning of another day's battle for survival. You look out at the fields that stretch before you, knowing that each step toward them carries the weight of obligation, necessity, and the quiet determination that has kept your family alive through countless mornings just caught, like this one. But first, there's another harsh reality to face: the gnawing emptiness in your belly that demands attention before you can even think about the day's work. The breakfast that wasn't your stomach gnaws at you as you reach for what passes as your morning meal, but what you find would horrify any modern person who takes their breakfast for granted. The hunger that greets you each morning isn't the gentle rumble of someone who skipped dinner, it's the sharp, persistent ache of a body that has learned to function on the edge of starvation. Your hands tremble slightly as you reach for the wooden bowl that holds your meager portion, knowing that what lies inside represents not nourishment, but merely fuel to keep your body moving through another day of endless labor. Hunger has become your constant companion, following you through every moment of your waking hours and haunting your dreams at night. This isn't the temporary discomfort of modern dieting or the brief pang before a scheduled meal, it's the deep, gnawing emptiness that defines your existence. By one estimate, medieval peasants had only about 150 working days per year and lived with chronic hunger, making every morsel precious beyond measure. Your breakfast becomes less a meal than a desperate attempt to quiet your body's demands long enough to begin the day's work. That stale rye bread in your hands might be the most substantial food you'll see all day, its weight precious beyond measure in your calloused palms. The loaf sits before you like a dark, dense block, its crust so hard that your teeth can barely break through the surface. You soften the rock-hard bread with water, creating a soggy mess that's barely edible but necessary for survival. The wooden bowl fills with murky liquid as you pour precious water over the bread, watching it slowly absorb the moisture until it becomes a paste-like substance that bears little resemblance to food. The soggy mixture in your bowl tastes of dampness and disappointment, but you eat it slowly, savoring each spoonful not for its flavor, but for its promise of temporary relief from the hunger that drives you forward. Your jaw works methodically as you chew the softened bread, extracting every possible bit of nutrition from the meager portion. The taste is sour and flat, with hints of mold that you've learned to ignore, because refusing to eat means accepting weakness that you cannot afford. A turnip from your small garden feels like a feast, though it's bitter and tough from the poor soil that surrounds your dwelling. When you're fortunate enough to have one, you hold it like a treasure, examining its rough skin for any signs of rot or disease that might make it inedible. Yet as you bite into its pale flesh, the bitter taste floods your mouth, a reminder that even your garden struggles against the same harsh conditions that define your life. The turnip's texture is woody and fibrous, requiring considerable effort to chew, but you persist because you know that later in the day, when exhaustion threatens to overcome you, you'll remember this moment of relative crass. Abundance. Pottage becomes a luxury when ingredients are available, transforming your morning meal from mere sustenance into something approaching comfort. This thin gruel, made from whatever scraps you can gather, perhaps some barley, oats, peas, or beans, represents the closest you come to true cooking. When you have the ingredients, you can create a warm, filling meal that reminds you of better times. The pottage simmers slowly over your fire, filling your hut with an aroma that makes your mouth water and your stomach contract with anticipation. Yet these ingredients are rarely all available at once, making pottage a special treat rather than a daily staple. Meat exists only in your dreams and on the rarest feast days, making your mouth water at the mere thought of its rich flavor and satisfying texture. The memory of meat from your last feast day haunts your morning meal, a phantom taste that makes your current fare seem even more inadequate. You can still recall the way the fat rendered on your tongue, the way the protein satisfied your hunger in a way that bread and vegetables never could. To wash down this meager fare, you reach for your cup of small beer or ale not for pleasure, but because many drank these beverages since water sources often carried disease. The weak ale provides little comfort but offers safer hydration than the questionable water from wells and streams that might be contaminated. Even this simple drink represents a careful balance of resources, as the grains used for brewing could just as easily become bread. Every crumb must be saved, every scrap treasured, because waste means the difference between survival and starvation. Your fingers carefully collect even the smallest pieces of bread that fall from your bowl, pressing them back into the mixture rather than allowing them to disappear into the straw on your floor. This careful attention to every morsel reflects a mindset shaped by constant scarcity, where the loss of even a single bite of food could affect your ability to work or survive. As you swallow the last bitter bite, you understand that this isn't living, it's merely surviving, one meal at a time, carrying the weight of hunger forward into another day of endless demands. The empty bowl in your hand serves as a reminder that your struggle for sustenance is just beginning, and soon you must leave this meager comfort behind to face the obligations that await beyond your door. The lords who owned your life, the path to the fields, leads you toward masters who control not just your labor, but your very existence. The morning air carries the weight of obligation as you walk the familiar route, your feet knowing the way even in the dim light that precedes dawn. Each step takes you further from the meager comfort of your hut and closer to the reality that defines your world. Your day isn't just about survival, it's about serving those who hold your life in their hands, those who can determine whether you eat or starve with a single decision. The feudal system wraps around you like invisible chains, binding you to duties that benefit everyone except your own family. The manor looms in the distance, a constant reminder of your place in a system designed to keep you down. Its stone walls rise above the landscape like a monument to power, casting long shadows across the fields where you'll spend your day laboring. The sight of those walls sends a familiar chill through your chest, not from cold, but from the knowledge of what they represent. Within those walls lives the lord who owns not just the land you work, but your very freedom. The manor's size speaks of wealth built on the backs of people like you, its grandeur a stark contrast to the rough wooden huts that house the peasants who make it all possible. 2 or 3 days each week, you must work your lord's land for free, while your own crops wither from neglect in the fields behind your dwelling. This obligation, known as corvée labor, steals away precious time when you could be tending your own small plot. The irony cuts deep. You watch your family's food supply suffer while you enrich the man who already has more than he could ever need. Your muscles ache from yesterday's work on the lord's estate, yet you know that today will demand the same back-breaking effort. The scythe feels heavy in your hands as you contemplate another day of unpaid labor, another day when your own survival takes second place to your master's profit. Every swing of your scythe on the lord's land is unpaid labor, while your family's needs go unmet at home. The rhythm of cutting grain becomes a meditation on injustice, each stroke a reminder that your strength builds someone else's wealth. The sun climbs higher as you work, and with each passing hour, You think of your own fields where weeds grow among the struggling crops. Your children might be hungry tonight, but the Lord's granaries will overflow with grain you've harvested. The contradiction weighs on your shoulders like the heavy tool in your hands, a burden that goes far beyond physical exhaustion. The church demands its 10% of everything you produce regardless of whether your children have eaten or your own stores run dangerously low. The priest's visits bring not comfort but additional hardship as he collects grain, eggs, or precious coin that represents a portion of your family's survival. This tithe flows to an institution that promises salvation in the next life while offering little relief in this one. The church has built special barns, called tithe barns, to store the vast quantities of produce collected from struggling peasants like yourself, a testament to how much wealth flows from the desperate to the comfortable. Even when your children cry from hunger, the church's demands remain constant and unyielding. You watch your grain supply dwindle as you set aside the required portion, knowing that what you give away might mean the difference between your family's survival and starvation in the coming winter months. The moral burden of choosing between feeding your children and meeting your religious obligations creates a weight that presses against your chest with every breath. Yet refusing to pay means facing consequences that could destroy not just your livelihood but your soul's eternal fate, according to the teachings you've grown up hearing. Tax collectors arrive with the predictability of seasons, taking what little you've managed to scrape together from your meager earnings. These men appear at your door like harbingers of disaster, their presence turning your stomach cold with fear. They carry with them the authority of the king himself, documented in great books that record exactly how much you owe. The Doomsday Book leaves no room for dispute. Your obligations are written in permanent ink, catalogued and calculated with precision that makes protest impossible. You watch helplessly as they take grain that should feed your family, coins that should buy necessities, and livestock that should provide milk for your children. Their arrival transforms your humble dwelling into a scene of quiet desperation. You bring forward your carefully saved resources, each item representing hours of back-breaking labor and careful conservation. The tax collectors show no emotion as they count and measure, their faces revealing nothing about the impact their demands have on your family's survival. They take what they came for and leave without considering whether you'll have enough left to plant next season's crop or feed your family through the coming winter. Failure to pay means public humiliation, physical punishment, or worse, being cast out to starve in a world that offers no mercy to the landless. The village square has witnessed the punishment of those who couldn't meet their obligations, their suffering serving as a warning to all who might consider resisting the system. You've seen neighbors dragged before the manorial court, their faces twisted with shame and fear as they face judgment for their inability to pay what was demanded. The memory of their punishment haunts your dreams and strengthens your resolve to find whatever is needed to satisfy your own obligations, no matter the cost to your family's welfare. The threat of being cast out carries particular terror because it means not just losing your home, but losing your identity. Without land to work, you become nothing in this world, a wanderer without purpose or protection, vulnerable to starvation, disease, and violence. This knowledge shapes every decision you make, every choice about how to allocate your family's scarce resources, because the alternative to submission is annihilation. As you bend your back to work another man's land, you realize that freedom isn't just about money, it's about owning your own time, your own decisions, your own fate. The weight of the scythe in your hands becomes a symbol of everything you've lost to this system that treats human beings as resources to be exploited. Each stroke cuts not just grain, but pieces of your dignity, your hope, your sense of self-worth. Yet you continue because the alternative means watching your family suffer even more than they already do. The morning hours stretch ahead, promising nothing but more of the same relentless demands that will test every fiber of your being. The midday breaking point, by the time the sun reaches its peak, your body screams for rest, but the day has barely begun to reveal its true cruelty. The morning's labor feels like a distant memory as you straighten your aching back, feeling the vertebrae crack and protest against the hours of bending. Your shadow has shrunk to a small pool beneath your feet, marking the halfway point of a day that stretches endlessly in both directions. The heat beats down on your head and shoulders, adding another layer of misery to work that was already pushing you beyond your limits. Sweat stings your eyes and soaks through your rough linen shirt, creating a clammy second skin that clings uncomfortably to your body. Midday brings not relief, but the crushing realization that you're only halfway through an impossible day. The sun's position mocks your exhaustion, reminding you that equal hours of labor still await before darkness grants you permission to rest. Your legs shake with fatigue, and your arms feel like lead weights hanging from your shoulders. The simple act of lifting your scythe requires conscious effort, each movement a small victory against the weakness that threatens to overwhelm you. Around you, the fields shimmer in the heat, creating an almost dreamlike quality that makes your exhaustion feel surreal and disconnected from reality. Your hands tell the story of your morning's work in blood and blisters, the rough wooden handle of your scythe having worn through calluses that took years to build. The raw flesh beneath throbs with each movement, sending sharp pain up your arms with every stroke. Small cuts from the grain stalks crisscross your forearms, mixing dirt and sweat into wounds that will take weeks to heal properly. Your fingernails, broken and torn, ache where they've been split by the constant gripping and releasing of your tools. Yet stopping means your family doesn't eat, so you rack your hands in strips of cloth torn from your already threadbare clothing and continue working. The Lord's fields stretch endlessly before you, each row a reminder of work that benefits everyone except you and your struggling family. The grain you're cutting will fill his granaries while your own stores remain dangerously low. Row after row of golden wheat waves in the breeze, beautiful from a distance but representing nothing more than unpaid labor up close. Your back aches as you bend to gather the cut stalks, bundling them into sheaves that will become bread for tables you'll never sit at. The irony cuts deeper than any physical pannier surrounded by food you're helping to produce but cannot afford to eat. Your own small plot of land waits for attention behind your dwelling, but there are never enough hours to tend both properly. The weeds grow taller in your absence, choking out the struggling plants that represent your family's survival. You can picture the state of your garden as you work, knowing that every hour spent here is an hour your own crops suffer neglect. The mental image of your withering vegetables adds psychological weight to your physical exhaustion. Your children might go hungry tonight because you spent the day ensuring the Lord's wealth rather than tending your own sustenance. The tools you use are simple but brutally effective at wearing down your body. The wooden scythe handle, worn smooth by countless hands before yours, feels familiar but unforgiving in your grip. Plows, flails, sickles, and mattocks, each tool designed for specific tasks, but all sharing the common trait of demanding everything your body can give. The iron blade of your scythe requires constant attention, sharpening, and maintenance that eat into your precious rest time. These tools, primarily made of wood and iron, represent the height of agricultural technology in your world, yet they offer little relief from the back-breaking nature of farm work. Even your children can't escape this grinding system, their small hands gathering firewood, while their backs ache from carrying loads too heavy for their developing bodies. Your 6-year-old daughter stumbles under the weight of water buckets, her face etched with concentration as she tries not to spill the precious liquid. Your young son chases crows from the crops until tears stream down his cheeks, his child's attention span no match for the birds' persistence. Their laughter, once frequent and joyful, now comes in brief bursts between tasks that steal their childhood one day at a time. You watch them work with the same grim determination that marks your own face, knowing that this early introduction to labor is the only education they'll receive. The concept of a weekend doesn't exist in your world, only the changing seasons that bring different types of back-breaking work. Spring means planting, summer means weeding and tending, autumn brings harvest, and winter offers no rest but different challenges. The agrarian calendar governs every aspect of your existence, from the timing of your daily tasks to the rhythm of your family's survival. Each season demands its own specific skills and tools, but all require the same crushing physical effort that leaves you exhausted and aching. There's no break in this cycle, no time when you can truly rest without consequences for your family's welfare. Other peasants around you move like ghosts, their faces etched with the same exhaustion that mirrors your own. You see your neighbor's shoulders slump as he works, recognizing the same defeated posture that you feel in your own body. The woman in the next row moves with mechanical precision, her movements efficient but joyless. Children dart between the workers, their energy already diminished by the morning's labor. This shared exhaustion creates a bond between you, a silent understanding that speaks louder than any words you might exchange during your brief moments of rest. This moment reveals the fourth devastating truth about peasant life: it was a grinding machine that consumed entire families, children included. The system doesn't distinguish between adults and children, between the strong and the weak, between those who can endure and those who cannot. Everyone becomes fuel for the same engine of survival, their individual needs and limitations irrelevant to the demands of the agricultural calendar. The work continues regardless of personal cost, because the alternative is starvation for everyone involved. As you wipe blood from your hands and continue working, you understand that survival requires sacrificing pieces of your soul daily. Each drop of blood that falls to the earth represents more than physical injury. It's a reminder that your body is currency in a system that values productivity over humanity. Yet somewhere in the distance, church bells begin to ring, their sound carrying across the fields like a promise that not every day will be exactly the same. The rare taste of joy those bells signal something precious beyond measure: a feast day that transforms your world from endless grey into moments of brilliant colour. The announcement spreads through the village like wildfire, carried from hut to hut by voices that suddenly carry notes of excitement instead of exhaustion. Your heart lifts in your chest as you hear the news, a sensation so unfamiliar that you almost don't recognize it as hope. The feast day appears on the horizon like a distant light, promising relief from the endless cycle of labor and hunger that has defined your existence for so long. In the midst of endless hardship, these celebrations provide brief windows into a different kind of existence, one where laughter comes naturally and worry takes a temporary rest. These moments feel almost dreamlike in their rarity, as if you're stepping into someone else's life where joy isn't rationed like bread. The anticipation builds slowly in your chest, a warm feeling that spreads through your tired limbs like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. You find yourself walking with lighter steps, your shoulders not quite as bowed by the weight of your daily burdens. The very air seems different when a feast day approaches, charged with possibility and the promise of something better than mere survival. These moments of joy are so rare they feel almost forbidden, making you wonder if you deserve such happiness when your daily life is marked by struggle and sacrifice. The guilt creeps in alongside the excitement, whispering that perhaps this joy belongs to others more worthy than a simple peasant who spends his days bent over fields. You catch yourself smiling and immediately feel the need to hide it, as if expressing happiness might somehow anger the forces that control your fate. The unfamiliarity of anticipation makes you nervous, like a child who has been promised a treat but fears it might be taken away at any moment. The village square fills with neighbors you rarely see smile, their faces transformed by the promise of ale and laughter that will flow freely for one precious evening. Women emerge from their huts wearing their best clothes, rough garments that have been carefully mended and cleaned for this special occasion. Men gather in groups, their conversation animated by prospects of drinking and storytelling without the shadow of tomorrow's labor hanging over them. Children run between the adults, their energy infectious as they sense the change in atmosphere. The transformation is remarkable, faces that normally carry the weight of hardship now shine with something approaching genuine happiness. For one precious evening, meat appears on tables, and your stomach remembers what it feels like to be truly full for the first time in months. The smell of roasting pork fills the air, a rich aroma that makes your mouth water and your knees weak with anticipation. You watch as platters are carried to the long tables set up in the square, loaded with foods that exist only in your dreams during ordinary days. The sight of actual meat, glistening with fat and herbs, brings tears to your eyes. When you finally take that first bite, the flavor explodes across your tongue, reminding your body of what nourishment truly means. Your stomach, accustomed to constant emptiness, struggles to process this abundance. The feast includes vegetables prepared with care instead of desperation, seasoned with herbs that grow wild in the fields but are usually too precious to waste on daily meals. Bread appears that isn't stale or moldy. It's crust golden, and its inside soft and warm. Ale flows freely, the amber liquid carrying away the bitter taste of your usual water. Your hands shake slightly as you reach for each new dish, hardly believing that this abundance is real and available to you. The act of eating becomes a celebration itself, each bite a small victory against the hunger that usually defines your existence. Stories flow like the ale tales of saints and dragons, psalms passed down through generations of people just like you who found ways to preserve beauty in the midst of hardship. An old man stands near the fire, his voice carrying across the square as he recounts legends of brave knights and magical creatures. His words paint pictures in your mind of worlds beyond your daily struggles, places where heroism and wonder exist. The songs that follow are familiar, their melodies worn smooth by countless voices over the centuries. You find yourself humming along, your voice joining with others in harmonies that seem to rise up from the very stones beneath your feet. Children play without working, their laughter echoing off the buildings like music you'd forgotten existed in a world where even the youngest hands are pressed into service. You watch a group of young ones chasing each other around the square, their faces bright with the pure joy of movement without purpose. Their laughter rings out clear and sweet, a sound that has been absent from your daily life for so long that hearing it now brings unexpected tears to your eyes. These children, who normally move with the careful efficiency of small adults, suddenly remember how to be young. They skip and tumble and call out to each other with voices free from the weight of responsibility. You glimpse what life might be like if survival wasn't a daily battle, if joy could be more than a rare visitor to your weary existence. The evening stretches before you filled with possibility instead of obligation. Time measured not by tasks completed, but by moments of genuine pleasure. You see couples dancing to the music, their movements awkward but heartfelt, their faces showing an intimacy that has been buried under layers of exhaustion and worry. The sight of your neighbors relaxing, truly relaxing, creates a vision of what humanity might look like when freed from the constant pressure of mere survival. These feast days reveal the fifth bittersweet truth about peasant life. Peasants weren't broken by hardship, because they held on to hope through rare moments of genuine happiness that sustained them through the darkest times. The joy you experience tonight will echo in your memory during the harsh days to come, a reminder that life holds more than suffering. These celebrations become anchors for your spirit, proof that beauty and happiness exist even in the most difficult circumstances. As the evening ends and reality returns, you carry the memory of laughter like a candle flame in the darkness of your daily life. But even as you treasure these moments, you know that tomorrow will bring the same endless cycle of labor and struggle, and you begin to understand that these brief escapes only make the weight of your ordinary days feel heavier. By comparison, the weight of endless seasons, the calendar becomes your captor, dictating every aspect of your existence with the relentless precision of a machine designed to extract every ounce of strength from your tired body. Time moves differently in your world, not in the steady progression of hours and days that might bring change, but in the endless wheel of planting, tending, harvesting, and surviving. Each season brings its own brand of suffering, creating a cycle of hardship that never truly ends but simply transforms from one form of misery to another. Your life follows the rhythm of the agrarian calendar, which is dictated by the sun's position and the demands of survival. The workday begins as early as 3 in the morning during the summer months and stretches until dusk paints the sky in shades of exhaustion. Each phase of the year demands everything you have, and often more than your body can possibly give. Spring planting, summer tending, autumn harvest, winter survival. These aren't just activities but battles that you fight with tools worn smooth by countless hands and a determination born from knowing that failure means death. Winter arrives like a slow-moving plague, bringing with it the constant worry of dwindling food stores that must somehow stretch until the next harvest months away. You watch your carefully preserved grain disappear handful by handful, each meal a calculation of survival that weighs your family's immediate hunger against the terror of having nothing left when the cold months deepen. The root vegetables stored in your cellar shrink in number as the weeks pass, their remaining presence a countdown to potential starvation. Your prayers become mathematical equations, pleading with God that your stores will last until spring's first green shoots appear in the thawed earth. The darkness of winter days mirrors the darkness of your thoughts as you contemplate the months ahead. Snow covers the fields where you'll soon need to plant, and the frozen ground serves as a reminder of how little control you have over the forces that determine your fate. The cold seeps through your wooden walls, making even sleep a battle against the elements. You huddle closer to your family around the dying fire, sharing not just warmth, but the unspoken fear that this winter might be the one that finally breaks you. Spring brings hope, but also the crushing pressure of planting enough to survive another year in this endless cycle. The sight of the first green shoots pushing through the thawed earth fills your heart with relief, but that relief quickly transforms into anxiety about the monumental task ahead. The soil must be prepared, seeds must be planted, and every decision you make during these crucial weeks will determine whether your family eats or starves in the months to come. Your hands shake as you sow each seed, knowing that the success of these tiny kernels holds your family's future. The spring rains that bring life to your crops also bring the memory of years when too much rain destroyed everything you'd worked for. The excessive rainfall of 1313, 1314, and 1317-1321 caused widespread crop failures across Europe, leading to the Great Famine that killed millions. You remember the stories your father told of those terrible years, when the shift from the medieval warm period to the Little Ice Age brought weather patterns that turned farming from difficult to nearly impossible. Every storm cloud that gathers overhead carries the threat of repetition, of another year when nature itself conspires against your survival. Summer's heat turns the fields into furnaces where you work until your vision blurs and your legs shake with exhaustion. The sun beats down mercilessly as you tend the growing crops, pulling weeds that compete with your food for precious nutrients in the poor soil. The work never stops during these crucial months: haymaking, tending livestock, and maintaining the endless cycle of agricultural tasks that determine your survival. June brings the harvesting of wheat and hay, July the reaping of cereals with a sickle, each month bringing its own demands that cannot be postponed or ignored. Your body becomes a calendar itself, marked by the seasonal demands that steal your strength year after year. The calluses on your hands tell the story of countless harvests, while the ache in your back speaks of years spent bent over crops that might or might not survive to feed your family. The tools you use, sickles, scythes, and plows, become extensions of your failing body, each implement designed to extract maximum productivity from human muscle and bone. You move through the summer heat like a ghost, your movements mechanical as you perform tasks that have been repeated by generations of peasants before you. Autumn's harvest determines whether your family lives or dies, making every day a race against time, and whether that could destroy months of work in a single storm. The golden fields that should represent abundance instead fill you with terror, because you know that the difference between a good harvest and a poor one is the difference between survival and starvation. You work frantically to gather the grain before rain can rot it in the fields, your hands moving with desperate efficiency as you cut and bundle the precious stalks. The primary crops you depend on, wheat, barley, oats, rye, and peas, must be harvested at precisely the right moment, their timing dictated by nature rather than your convenience. The cycle repeats endlessly, each year stealing more of your strength while offering no promise of improvement or escape. You watch other peasants age rapidly under the same pressures, their faces etched with the same exhaustion that marks your own features. The young become old before their time, and the old simply disappear, worn away by the relentless demands of a system that treats human beings as expendable resources. This endless cycle reveals the sixth crushing truth about peasant life. Peasants lived in a temporal prison, where time moved in circles of suffering rather than lines of progress toward something better. Each season returns with the same demands, the same fears, the same crushing weight of survival that grinds down the human spirit. There is no advancement, no improvement, no hope that next year will be easier than this one. As you mark another season's passing, you understand that hope isn't about escape, it's about finding meaning in the struggle itself, about discovering the small moments of beauty that make the endless cycle bearable. Yet even as you search for these fragments of light, You know that the greatest test of all isn't the work that breaks your body, it's the invisible threats that could end everything without warning. The diseases that stalked your door disease lurks in every shadow of your existence, turning each breath into a gamble with death itself. While you battle the visible enemies of hunger, cold, and backbreaking labor, invisible killers wait in the water you drink and the air you breathe. These microscopic assassins show no respect for your years of hard work or your family's desperate need for your strength. They strike without regard for the crops that still need tending or the children who depend on your survival. The knowledge that death could arrive as easily as a cough or a fever adds another layer of dread to your already overwhelming existence. The very elements that keep you alive, water, food, and shelter, become potential sources of destruction when contaminated by forces you cannot see or understand. Your wooden cup, worn smooth by countless uses, might carry the seeds of your family's doom. The well that provides your drinking water could harbor invisible enemies that transform life-giving liquid into poison. Even the air in your cramped hut, thick with smoke and the breath of your family, becomes a pathway for diseases that spread from person to person like wildfire through dry grass. Every cough from a neighbor, every fever in a child, could signal the beginning of the end for your entire family and everyone you've ever known. The sound of illness carries across the thin walls of your village like a death knell, making your stomach clench with fear whenever you hear it. You watch your neighbor's child develop a persistent cough and feel your own throat tighten with sympathy and terror. The fever that burns in your daughter's forehead might be nothing more than a passing illness, or it could be the first sign of something that will steal her away before the next harvest. The Black Death isn't just history, it's the nightmare that haunts every peasant community, capable of erasing entire villages from existence as if they had never been. This devastating pandemic struck in the 14th century, killing between a third and a half of the entire population. The bubonic plague moves through communities like a scythe through wheat, leaving behind empty huts and silent fields where laughter once echoed. You've heard the stories from travelers about villages where only a handful of survivors remain to bury the dead, places where the church bells no longer ring because there's no one left to pull the ropes. The labor shortages created by the Black Death gave peasants some power they did not possess before, allowing them to demand better working conditions and higher wages. Yet this small silver lining comes at a cost so terrible that no amount of improved circumstances can compensate for the loss of entire families and communities. You wonder if the increased wages are worth the price of watching your world depopulate before your eyes. Simple infections become death sentences when there's no medicine, no doctors, and no understanding of what causes illness or how to treat it effectively. A cut on your hand from your scythe, something that should heal within days, festers and spreads poison through your arm. The wound that begins as a minor inconvenience transforms into a red, swollen mass that throbs with pain and radiates heat like a coal from your fire. You have no knowledge of antiseptics or antibiotics, no understanding of how infection spreads or how to prevent it. Your only remedies are folk treatments passed down through generations, prayers to saints, and the desperate hope that your body can fight off whatever has invaded it. Contaminated water sources spread dysentery through communities like wildfire, turning basic survival needs into deadly gambles every time you raise a cup to your lips. The well that serves your village becomes a source of terror when the first cases of bloody flux appear among your neighbors. You watch strong men weaken and die within days, their bodies racked by uncontrollable diarrhea that dehydrates them faster than they can replace the lost fluids. The disease spreads from house to house, carried by the very water that should sustain life. Your malnourished body, weakened by years of inadequate food and constant labor, becomes vulnerable to diseases that well-fed people might survive. The chronic hunger that defines your existence strips away your natural defenses, leaving you exposed to illnesses that would be merely uncomfortable for those with proper nutrition. Your children, already small and weak from insufficient food, have no reserves to fight off the infections that regularly sweep through your community. Their thin arms and hollow cheeks tell the story of bodies that lacked the strength to battle the invisible enemies that surround them. The high rates of infant mortality mean that approximately 50% of infants succumb to illness within their first year, making every birth a mixture of joy and terror. You hold your newborn child, and feel the familiar weight of love mixed with the awful knowledge that this tiny life might not survive to see another season. Women face their own dangers, with around 20% dying in childbirth, turning the act of bringing life into the world into a potential death sentence. You watch neighbors disappear, their huts standing empty as reminders of how quickly life can be stolen away by forces beyond your control or understanding. The family that lived 3 doors down from you simply vanishes over the course of a week, leaving behind only the smell of sickness and the eerie silence of a dwelling that once rang with children's voices. Their empty home becomes a monument to the fragility of life, its dark windows staring out at the village like vacant eyes. This constant threat reveals the 7th terrifying truth about peasant life. Peasants lived not just with hardship, but with the knowledge that death could claim them at any moment, making every healthy day precious beyond measure. The awareness of mortality permeates every aspect of your existence, from the prayers you whisper at bedtime to the way you hold your children just a little tighter when they cough. As you say prayers for the sick and dying, you understand that survival requires more than just enduring disease and hardship. It means navigating a world where those with power can destroy you just as easily as any plague. The justice that wasn't just when conflict arises. You discover that justice for peasants isn't about right and wrong, it's about power and the complete absence of it in your calloused hands. The moment you hear whispers of trouble in the village, your stomach turns cold with the knowledge that truth matters far less than social standing. You've watched neighbors disappear into the machinery of medieval justice, their fate determined not by evidence or fairness, but by the whims of those who hold authority over your lives. The legal system that surrounds you wasn't designed to protect people like you. It exists to keep you in your place through fear and punishment, ensuring that you never forget your position at the bottom of society's ladder. The manor court becomes a theatre of terror, where your lord dispenses justice based on his personal preferences, rather than any consistent system of law that might offer you protection. When accusations fly, you realize that your voice carries no weight against those with higher social standing, making you vulnerable to false claims that could destroy everything you've worked to build. The word of a peasant means nothing when measured against that of a merchant, a priest, or anyone else who occupies a higher rung on the social ladder. Your years of honest labor, your reputation among your neighbors, your desperate need to survive, none of these matter when someone with power decides you've overstepped your bounds. The courtroom itself reflects this imbalance of power, with your lord seated in judgment while you stand before him like a criminal regardless of your innocence. The wooden chair from which he renders his decisions might as well be a throne, elevated above the common people who must accept whatever fate he chooses to impose. You've seen good men and women brought before this court, their faces etched with terror as they realize that their fate depends not on justice, but on the mood of someone who views them as little more than property. The arbitrary nature of these proceedings means that survival requires not just hard work, but also the ability to remain invisible to those who could destroy you with a single word. Accusations can destroy your life even when you're innocent, because the system requires no proof beyond the word of your social betters. A merchant claims you've stolen grain, and suddenly you find yourself facing penalties that could leave your family destitute. A neighbor with connections suggests you've been spreading dissent, and you discover that your loyalty means nothing against political convenience. The burden of proof falls on you, the accused, to demonstrate your innocence in a system designed to find you guilty. Your rough hands and weathered face mark you as someone whose word cannot be trusted, while those who accuse you speak with the authority of their elevated position. The punishments that follow these arbitrary judgments become public spectacles designed to terrify other peasants into submission and absolute obedience. The village square transforms into a stage where your pain becomes entertainment for some and a warning for others. You watch as your neighbor is dragged to the stocks, his head and hands locked in wooden restraints, while the community gathers to witness his humiliation. The pillory holds another victim, his body twisted at uncomfortable angles as hours pass and his strength fails. These devices serve as constant reminders of what happens to those who step out of line or simply find themselves on the wrong side of someone with power. Theft of even small items can result in mutilation or death, while lords who steal peasants' lives face no consequences for their actions. You've seen a man lose his hand for taking bread to feed his starving children. The executioner's blade falling with swift precision as the crowd watches in horrified silence. The irony burns in your chest. The same Lord who ordered this punishment has taken far more from your community through taxes and forced labor, yet he faces no judgment for his theft of your time, your strength, hope. The scales of justice weigh heavily against those who have nothing, while those who have everything escape consequences for their crimes against the powerless. The trial by ordeal represents the ultimate expression of this corrupt system, where your fate depends not on evidence but on your ability to survive physical torture. When the jury cannot reach a decision, you might find yourself walking on hot coals or holding a red-hot iron, your guilt or innocence determined by how quickly your wounds heal. The logic behind these trials reveals the medieval belief that God will protect the innocent, but the reality is far more brutal. Your survival depends on factors completely beyond your control. The wounds on your hands become evidence of your character, as if the divine can be measured in the speed of healing flesh. The psychological impact of this system extends far beyond the immediate victims of punishment, creating an atmosphere of fear that permeates every aspect of peasant life. You learn to speak carefully, to avoid eye contact with your superiors, to accept injustice without complaint, because resistance brings only greater suffering. The knowledge that you have no legal recourse shapes every decision you make, from how you interact with your neighbors to how you raise your children. You teach them not just to work hard, but to remain invisible, to avoid any action that might draw attention from those who could destroy their lives on a whim. This system reveals the eighth devastating truth about peasant life. Peasants lived without the protection of law, subject to the arbitrary will of those with power who used fear as their primary tool of control. The legal system becomes another form of oppression, disguised as justice but functioning as a mechanism to maintain the social order that keeps you trapped in poverty and servitude. As you witness another peasant's punishment, you understand that survival means not just working hard, but staying invisible to those who could destroy you. Yet even as you master this delicate art of avoiding notice, you realize that the greatest tragedy isn't what this system does to you, it's what it forces you to do to the ones you love most. The children who never got to be children, your children, become the clearest mirror of what this system truly costs, their small faces reflecting not the wonder of youth, but the weight of premature responsibility. Their eyes carry expressions that should belong to adults, marked by the understanding that survival requires their contribution from the moment they can walk steadily. The spark of curiosity that should light their faces has been replaced by the focused attention of workers who know that their family's next meal depends on their efforts. You watch your 5-year-old daughter's face as she concentrates on her tasks, her brow furrowed with the same intensity you see in your own reflection. These children have learned to measure their worth not in games played or stories heard, but in water carried and birds scared away from precious crops. Childhood becomes a luxury that peasant families cannot afford, turning small hands into tools for survival before they've had time to discover what play might mean. Every morning, you watch your children transform from sleepy youngsters into miniature adults, their responsibilities calling them from whatever dreams children might have in a world that offers so little space, imagination. The wooden buckets they carry seem impossibly large against their small frames, yet they struggle forward with determination that breaks your heart. Their games, when they exist at all, center around the work they must do pretending to plant seeds, or practicing the motions of scaring crows, their play indistinguishable from preparation for adult labor. Every day you must choose between protecting your children's innocence and ensuring they live to see tomorrow, a decision that tears at your soul with each passing hour. The knowledge that their childhood must be sacrificed for their survival creates a weight in your chest that never lifts. You want to shield them from the harsh realities of your world, to let them laugh and play without the shadow of starvation hanging over their heads. Yet you also know that unprepared children become dead children, that the skills they learn now will determine whether they survive the countless hardships that await them. 5-year-olds carry water buckets that strain their small frames, their games replaced by necessary chores that consume the hours when they should be discovering the world through wonder rather than work. You watch your youngest son struggle with a bucket that weighs nearly as much as he does, his small legs shaking with the effort as he makes his way from the well to your hut. The distance that takes you minutes to cover becomes an epic journey for him, marked by frequent stops to rest and readjust his grip. His breathing becomes labored, and you see the exhaustion in his eyes, but stopping means the family goes without water for cooking and cleaning. The sight of children gathering firewood with arms barely strong enough to carry the bundles creates a tableau of childhood stolen by necessity. Their small hands become rough and calloused from handling wood and rope, their palms developing the same thick skin that marks adult workers. The forest paths they walk daily should be spaces for exploration and discovery, but instead they become routes of labor where every fallen branch must be evaluated for its potential to keep your family warm. They learn to judge the weight of wood, to select pieces that burn well, to bundle their loads efficiently, skills that replace the natural curiosity that should define their years. Education remains a dream reserved for the wealthy, while your children learn only what they need to survive another generation of hardship in a world that offers them no other options. The village has no school, no teacher, no books that might open their minds to possibilities beyond the fields that surround them. Instead, their education happens in the practical moments of daily survival learning, to plant seeds at the right depth, to recognize the signs of sick animals, to preserve food for winter storage. You teach them to read the weather, to understand the seasons, to calculate how much grain must be saved for planting next year. Child mortality haunts every peasant parent, making love a dangerous investment in hearts that might stop beating without warning or explanation. You hold your children close at night, feeling the steady rhythm of their breathing, while trying not to think about the empty spaces in your neighbors' homes, where laughter once echoed. The graveyard behind your church holds too many small stones, each one marking a life that flickered out before it could fully begin. You've learned to love fiercely while holding loosely, knowing that attachment to these precious lives brings joy mixed with the constant terror of loss. Boys face the prospect of a lifetime of back-breaking labor, while girls confront early marriage and the dangers of childbirth that claim so many young mothers. You look at your son and see your own exhaustion reflected in his future. The same bent back and calloused hands that will mark his passage through a world that values his strength above his dreams. Your daughter's path leads toward marriage before her body is ready, toward the risks of pregnancy that kill 1 in 5 women who attempt to bring life into this harsh world. Play becomes a rare luxury squeezed between survival tasks, making laughter precious and fleeting when it does emerge from their serious faces. When your children do find moments for games, they play quietly, almost guiltily, as if they understand that joy must be stolen rather than freely given. Their laughter, when it comes, sounds like music in your ears, a reminder of what childhood should be but can never fully become in your world. The stolen childhood of peasant children represents the 9th heartbreaking truth about peasant life. It consumed entire generations, turning children into premature adults who never experienced the ball. Carefree joy of youth. The system that trapped adults in cycles of poverty and labor extended its reach into the next generation, ensuring that the pattern would continue indefinitely. As you watch your children work with adult seriousness, you understand that love sometimes means preparing them for a world that will show them no mercy, even as your heart breaks for the childhood they will never know. Yet when the long day finally ends, and you gather them close, you begin to see something else in their faces, not just premature wisdom, but a quiet strength that speaks of something deeper than mere survival. The quiet heroism of nightfall. When evening finally arrives, you discover something remarkable in the simple act of gathering your family close, that survival itself becomes a form of quiet heroism that no history book will ever record. The sun's disappearance behind the horizon doesn't just mark the end of another day of labor, it reveals the profound truth that enduring what seems unendurable requires more strength than any sword-wielding knight could ever possess. Your body aches with the familiar exhaustion that has become your constant companion, yet you remain standing, breathing, hoping. This simple fact that you have survived another day when so many others have not represents a victory that no lord or king could ever truly understand. Night brings not just rest, but the profound realization that every sunrise you've witnessed, every meal you've managed to provide, Every moment you've kept your family alive represents an act of courage that will never be celebrated in songs or stories. The candlelight flickers in your small hut, casting dancing shadows on the rough walls that have witnessed countless such evenings. You move slowly through the familiar ritual of settling your family for the night, each gesture weighted with the knowledge of what tomorrow will demand. Your hands, still stained with the day's work, shake slightly as you tend the fire that will keep your family warm through the cold hours ahead. In the flickering firelight, you confront the weight of everything you've endured and everything you must face tomorrow, yet you find the strength to continue moving forward. The amber glow illuminates faces that tell the story of your shared struggle, your spouse's features etched with the same exhaustion that marks your own, your children's eyes heavy with sleep, but bright with the resilience that keeps them prowess. Going. The fire crackles softly, its warmth a small comfort against the vast coldness of a world that offers so little mercy to people like you. You see your reflection in the dying embers and recognize something that you've never quite named before the face of someone who refuses to surrender. Your family gathers around the dying embers, their faces showing the same exhaustion and quiet strength that mirrors your own, creating a circle of shared endurance that transcends individual suffering. The single room that serves as your entire world becomes a sanctuary where the day's burdens can finally be set aside. Your children press close to you, their small bodies seeking warmth and comfort, while you and your spouse exchange the kind of look that passes between people who have walked through fire together. The livestock settling in that corner of the hut add their own gentle sounds to the evening's symphony, reminding you that even in the harshest conditions, life finds ways to persist. Stories whispered in the darkness become acts of resistance against a world that tries to crush the human spirit with its relentless demands. Your voice, hoarse from the day's labor, carries the weight of generations as you share tales passed down from your grandparents, their grandparents, and countless others who faced the same struggles you now endure. These stories, drawn from older folk tales and shaped by the experiences of your people, offer more than entertainment. They provide proof that others have survived what seems impossible to survive. Each tale becomes a bridge between past and future, connecting your family to a legacy of endurance that stretches back through centuries of hardship. The simple act of tucking your children under rough blankets becomes a declaration that love survives even in the harshest conditions, even when survival seems impossible. Your hands, calloused and cracked from endless work, smooth the coarse wool with the same tenderness that wealthy mothers show their children with silk coverlets. The blankets may be rough, the straw beneath them may be thin, but the love that guides your movements is as pure and strong as any emotion that has ever existed. You whisper quiet words of comfort, your voice carrying promises that tomorrow will come and that your family will face it together. Hope isn't a grand emotion but a quiet decision to believe that tomorrow's suffering might have meaning, that the cycle of hardship serves some purpose beyond mere survival. As you settle beside your family, you feel the weight of this decision in your chest, the choice to wake up tomorrow, to face another day of impossible demands, to keep your family alive for one more sunrise. This hope doesn't come with fanfare or dramatic declarations. It lives in the steady rhythm of your breathing, in the way you automatically plan tomorrow's tasks, in the careful way you bank the fire so it will last through the night. In this moment of rest, you understand that peasants weren't victims. They were warriors fighting a battle for dignity in an undignified world, for meaning in circumstances that seemed designed to strip away all meaning. The realization settles over you like a warm cloak, transforming your understanding of your own life. You haven't been merely surviving, you've been fighting a war against despair, against the forces that would reduce you to nothing more than a tool for others' prosperity. Every morning you've risen, every task you've completed, every moment you've chosen to continue living has been an act of defiance against a system that treats you as expendable. This nightly ritual reveals the final, most powerful truth. The greatest heroes in history weren't kings or knights, but ordinary people who chose to keep living when life seemed unbearable. The courage required to face another dawn, when every dawn brings fresh hardship, surpasses any battlefield valor. You and millions like you have fought the most important battle in human history, the battle to maintain dignity, love, and hope, in circumstances that would destroy weaker spirits. Your heroism doesn't shine in the pages of history books, but it glows in the quiet moments when you choose to continue despite overwhelming odds. As you close your eyes beside your family, you realize that the courage to face another dawn is the most profound form of heroism the world has ever known. The longing for peace at day's end is something we all share across centuries, but few have earned that peace through such constant struggle. Tonight, as you drift towards sleep, you carry with you the knowledge that your strength echoes through generations, your quiet heroism a testament to something deeper than survival, the unbreakable power of the human spirit. Endure. The morning will come again, but you now understand the weight that each dawn carried for those who came before us. As you drift back to your own time, carry with you the profound respect for those who endured what would break most of us in a single day. Their struggles led to the social progress we inherit today. The Black Death empowered peasants to demand better wages, and their revolts helped end feudal obligations. Let their quiet heroism remind you that comfort isn't just luxury, it's a gift that countless generations fought to give you through their survival. Close your eyes and rest easy, knowing that the strength to endure runs deeper in humanity than we ever imagined, echoing through centuries.